The story begins deep in a massive forest in southern Asia, where workers were busy cutting down trees to make byproducts. One of them was operating a machine when he suddenly noticed a naked man running through the forest. Confused, he ignored it and went back to work until he heard his friend screaming. Rushing toward the sound, he found his friend's helmet on the ground, stained with blood, along with a severed finger. Horrified, he tried to escape, but the ground was rigged with deadly traps, sharp wooden spikes ready to pierce anyone who stepped on them. Though he barely escaped one trap, he ended up caught in another that lifted him upside down. Helpless, he struggled but couldn't free himself. Suddenly, a tribal warrior with a sharp weapon appeared and brutally killed him. Days later, the scene shifted to a resort where two newly married couples were introduced, Richie and Jasmine, and AJ and Mia. While Richie suggested river rafting with AJ, the women were expected to go shopping. Jasmine, feeling underestimated, cancelled shopping plans and convinced Mia to join the rafting adventure instead. Everyone agreed, but then Richie shocked them by announcing he had sold his company and would cover all expenses for the trip, including AJ and Mia's. While Mia was delighted, AJ grew suspicious, questioning Richie's motives. Mia reminded him that Richie was his childhood friend and now free from business responsibilities, but AJ revealed that the company originally belonged to Jasmine's late father. Richie had cunningly taken it over and sold it, proving he couldn't be trusted. Still, Mia was too excited about the trip for AJ to refuse. Unaware of the danger ahead, both couples headed to the river, where they met Nick, a local expert familiar with the forest who would guide and protect them. Equipped and ready, Nick arrived on time to join their journey. He laid out the entire plan for their journey, explaining how they would move along the river and later head into the forest in search of food. Nothing could be more adventurous for a honeymoon than this. AJ, however, noticed that the trip was becoming more expensive than he could afford. He asked Richie about the costs, but Richie assured him not to worry, he would cover all expenses himself. Relieved, AJ calmed down, realizing all he had to do was enjoy the trip with his wife. Following Richie's lead, everyone got into the boat and began rafting. Nick, their guide, taught them how to paddle, steer, and maneuver the boat. After some practice, both couples were having fun, laughing and splashing each other. As they continued downstream, Nick decided they should venture further where the water was rougher, though he reassured them he knew how to handle the conditions. Still, AJ remained suspicious of him. Before moving on, Nick asked for everyone's phones, explaining that water could easily damage them. Most handed theirs over, but AJ kept his, saying he needed it for an important meeting. Nick didn't press the issue, placed the collected phones in a plastic bag, and moved on. While paddling, Nick shared stories about his family, explaining how guiding tourists had been their profession for generations. Shockingly, he revealed that his grandfather had disappeared while leading a group, and when a rescue team searched months later, they only found his uniform and scattered bones. It was discovered that not far from the river lived a dangerous tribe known for killing and eating people. Hearing this terrified Mia and Jasmine, but Nick assured them there was no need to worry since that territory was heavily restricted. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the forest, two bikers, a couple, were riding through the trails while live-streaming their adventure, gaining massive views online. Excited by their popularity, they ignored a "no entry" sign and decided to explore further, convinced it would double their audience. Revving their bikes loudly, they charged into the forbidden area, only for disaster to strike. A sudden attack slashed the male biker's throat, sending him crashing to the ground. The female rider was caught in a strange trap but managed to escape, only to find her boyfriend's throat completely severed. Terrified, she screamed and ran, desperate to get away. Back on the river, the two honeymoon couples continued rafting with Nick. AJ and Mia playfully splashed Richie and Jasmine with their paddles, filling the moment with laughter and carefree joy, completely unaware of the horrors lurking ahead. Suddenly, a small snake slithered into Richie and Jasmine's boat, and the moment they saw it, they panicked and jumped straight into the water. AJ and Mia couldn't stop laughing at the scene, and AJ even recorded it all on his phone, since he never handed it over to Nick. But when their boat lost balance, AJ and Mia also fell into the river. Despite the chaos, everyone was still enjoying the adventure. Meanwhile, in the forest, the female biker was running terrified after witnessing her boyfriend's brutal death. She stumbled into a massive cave shrouded in darkness. As she inspected the walls, she discovered bloodstains and strange symbols carved everywhere, clearly the work of humans, not animals. Horrified, she pulled out her phone and begged her viewers for help, recording everything as proof. But before she could react, a shadowy figure appeared behind her, a tribal warrior. Just as Nick had described, these were the people who killed and ate humans. The man attacked swiftly, dismembering her in the most gruesome way imaginable. Within moments, both bikers were dead at the hands of a single tribesman. And now, the tribe's next targets were likely the two honeymoon couples and Nick, who were unknowingly headed in that direction. As the river's flow slowed, the group pulled their boat ashore to set up camp for the night. Nick, well versed in survival, guided them through the setup. As darkness fell, Nick sat with Mia and began sharing disturbing stories about the tribe. He explained that a few months ago, workers had been attacked. One was captured alive and taken to the tribe's camp. Instead of killing him quickly, they mutilated him piece by piece because they lacked any method to preserve flesh. The man tried to escape, but ultimately only his bones were ever found. Mia was horrified, but AJ interrupted angrily, telling Nick not to scare her with such stories. He asked Mia to rest and stormed off. Later that night, Jasmine couldn't sleep and wandered into the forest, only to be grabbed from behind by AJ. Shockingly, the two were having an affair. AJ was cheating on Mia with Richie's wife. Jasmine suggested they confess the truth to their partners, but AJ insisted they wait, promising he would soon get promoted at work, divorce Mia, and be with her. Jasmine, however, doubted his intentions. Their heated argument ended with her storming off angrily, while AJ returned to camp to sleep. The shocking twist was that Richie and Mia had been awake the entire time and likely realized what was going on between AJ and Jasmine. Yet they stayed silent, their reasons to be revealed soon. By morning, everyone woke up as if nothing had happened. But even after looking everywhere, Richie was nowhere to be seen. Nick and the others grew anxious and began calling out his name. Nick then noticed that one of the boats was missing, which obviously Richie must have taken. Without wasting any more time, Nick and the group boarded another boat and started moving ahead through the water route. Nick was the most afraid because the restricted area was not far from there, and if Richie accidentally crossed to the other side, his life could be in serious danger. The water current grew stronger, making Nick realize there must be a waterfall ahead. He warned AJ, Jasmine, and Mia that they should return immediately and call a rescue team to save Richie. But none of them were ready to leave without him. He was their friend, and in such a critical situation, they felt it was their duty to help instead of abandoning him. Hearing this, Nick finally agreed and continued with them. After a long journey, they finally found the missing boat with a life suit lying nearby, meaning Richie had been there. AJ insisted on going inside with the two women, while Nick stayed back and warned them that if they didn't return within an hour, he would leave. Ignoring him, AJ, Mia, and Jasmine went inside to search for Richie. But entering the restricted zone was a huge mistake. They kept calling out Richie's name as they walked deeper, while Nick, left outside, was growing more terrified. He only had a knife for protection, and when he suddenly heard a faint sound, he became extremely cautious and moved toward it. To his shock, he found several dummies dressed in strange costumes, and objects hung from trees that clearly belonged to humans. Who had built this eerie structure in the middle of the forest, and what had happened to those people? Nick was horrified when he spotted the severed head of his grandfather placed on one of the dummies. As he turned around, he saw a tribal man sleeping nearby. Nick tried to escape quietly, but the man woke up from the noise and started chasing him. Nick shouted for his friends, but they were already too deep inside. Desperate, he jumped onto the boat and tried paddling away. For a moment, everything seemed silent, as if the tribal man had left. But in the next instant, the man suddenly emerged from the water and killed Nick on the spot. Nick's fate ended in a single second. Meanwhile, AJ, Mia, and Jasmine traveled further into a cave, the same one where the female backpacker had died earlier. They even found a helmet stained with blood. Just then, Richie appeared from behind, startling them. Jasmine, who had been deeply worried about him, hugged him tightly. AJ didn't like it but kept his feelings hidden. When they asked Richie what had happened, he simply said he couldn't sleep, so he wandered off and discovered this massive cave. In this whole process, strange tribal people were mentioned, people who attack humans. But what would happen if we were ever trapped in such a situation, surrounded by a tribe determined to kill us? According to forest officers, there's a survival technique to deal with such encounters. First, understand that these tribes don't know our language, so trying to talk to them is pointless. Studies reveal that their minds function almost like wild animals. They may be smarter than animals, but their mentality, from hunting to survival, mirrors that of beasts. Their attacks, their ambushes, all follow the same instincts as animals. So, if you ever come face to face with a tribal attacker, the first rule is, never make direct eye contact. Look down and don't turn back. At the same time, we need to make ourselves look as big as possible. Animals often use this tactic in fights to scare off enemies, and we must follow the same technique against the tribesmen. Slowly, we should back away and keep our distance. Every tribe, like wild animals, has its own territory, and anyone trespassing inside is killed. Our goal should always be to stay far away from such areas. For now, at least they had found Richie. But on the way, AJ asked him why he had wandered off like that. Richie angrily handed him his phone, which he had repaired by burying it in hot soil. Richie looked deeply disappointed. AJ immediately realized Richie had checked his phone and discovered the truth about AJ's affair with his wife. AJ said nothing and continued with the group. When they tried calling for Nick near the boat, he didn't respond, so the four of them took the boat themselves, unaware that a tribesman had already spotted them and was silently following. A little further down the river, they found another boat, which clearly belonged to Nick. Searching nearby, they saw a pot with fire burning under it. Something was being cooked. Richie instantly told them to run, because inside the pot was Nick's severed head. The horrifying sight left no one willing to stay there. They now knew the tribe was nearby and hunting humans. They quickly boarded the boat to escape, but suddenly a tribesman attacked AJ. AJ barely managed to block his sharp weapon, and the others rushed to help. Jasmine and Mia struck the attacker's head with a stone, weakening him before stabbing him to death. Another tribesman watched from a distance but didn't intervene at that moment. AJ and Richie, along with their wives, tried to move forward, but the river's current pulled their boat away, forcing them to continue on foot through the forest. Meanwhile, the wounded tribesman crawled to the shore, only for his comrade to arrive and kill him instantly, following their tribal rule that no member should be left to suffer. That second tribesman then turned his gaze toward the group, ready to take revenge. What kind of brutal deaths awaited the remaining four? Only survival techniques could keep them alive. As they moved deeper, they realized they were lost, with no river in sight to guide them out. Fear consumed them, knowing an ambush could come at any moment. As night fell, they decided to take turns standing guard. If danger appeared, one would alert the others so they could escape. Richie took the first watch, and Mia came to talk with him. Richie was devastated after discovering his wife's affair with AJ, his closest friend. He also revealed that Jasmine had been unable to conceive for years, but just last month she learned she was pregnant, and shockingly, the child wasn't his. His frustration grew unbearable, and Mia tried to comfort him, urging him to stay strong. Meanwhile, AJ also woke up and took his turn on watch. Swarmed by mosquitoes, he covered himself in mud, the best way to protect against bites in the forest. But suddenly, he saw the terrifying tribesmen had tracked them down. The tribesmen had already caught the scent of their bodies. AJ froze, realizing the danger. Acting quickly, he smeared mud all over himself and even buried his body beneath the wet earth, leaving only his head barely exposed. He stayed completely silent, hardly daring to breathe. The tribesmen passed by, unaware that AJ was hiding inches away. The moment the hunter moved ahead, AJ seized his chance. Exploding from the mud, he leapt onto the tribesmen and launched a desperate attack. They clashed violently, trading blows, but AJ quickly realized he was outmatched. The tribesman was far stronger, wrestling him down and raising a sharpened weapon to finish him. At the last second, Richie appeared from behind. He tackled the tribesman with full force, sending both of them tumbling down a slope. But before Richie could recover, several more tribesmen emerged from the shadows. They overwhelmed him in seconds. AJ glanced around frantically and saw Richie being dragged away, screaming for help. Crawling through the underbrush, AJ reached closer, and Richie's desperate eyes locked on him. "Please, don't let them take me," Richie begged, tears in his voice. But AJ saw the truth, there were too many of them. Any attempt to fight meant certain death. So he made a cold, selfish decision. "I'll get Jasmine and Mia out of here. If I have time, I'll come back for you," he lied. Without another word, he backed away and disappeared into the foliage, ignoring Richie's pleading cries. The tribesmen dragged Richie deep into their territory. Soon, the entire clan gathered in a circle, chanting as their ritual began. One of them severed Richie's leg cleanly, but instead of killing him, they left him bleeding and helpless in the forest. Then, they brought out a boy, just a child of the tribe. Everyone watched as the boy stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Richie. He knew exactly what he was supposed to do. The child shoved Richie hard, sending him stumbling backward. He fell directly onto a sharpened stake, and the weapon pierced through his body. His death was instant. Meanwhile, Jasmine and Mia were still by the river when AJ reappeared. Jasmine immediately demanded, "Where's Richie?" AJ lied again, saying, "He's right behind me." He went to grab the boat. "Keep moving." The three of them pressed deeper into the forest, but panic struck when they realized a tribesman was chasing them. Sprinting for their lives, they dodged branches and roots, but Jasmine suddenly fell into a hidden trap. A jagged stake tore into her shoulder, and she screamed in agony. AJ quickly tied a rope around Mia and lowered her into the pit. Struggling, Mia managed to free Jasmine, who sobbed uncontrollably. Through her tears, Jasmine confessed, "I betrayed you. I had an affair with AJ." Mia's face hardened. "I already knew," she whispered, "but now's not the time. Forget it. Just focus on surviving." With immense effort, she pulled Jasmine out. The three stumbled onward until they found a small boat. Climbing inside, they tried to push forward, but without paddles, the boat barely moved, drifting slowly down the river. Hours passed, exhaustion taking over, until both women fell asleep. But AJ stayed awake, his mind racing. He slipped out of the boat and ventured into the forest, pulling out his phone. He recorded a message, leaving the device on a tree branch with the volume cranked up. It was bait, a trap for the tribesmen. Soon enough, one of them arrived, drawn by the strange voice coming from the glowing screen. The tribesman studied the phone curiously, mesmerized. AJ struck from behind, attacking with everything he had. But once again, the tribesman's raw, primal strength overpowered him. The hunter slammed AJ's head into the dirt, pummeling him mercilessly. Then, with brutal efficiency, he looped a rope around AJ's neck and hauled him into the air, leaving him dangling by the throat, choking, as the forest echoed with his strangled gasps. Poor AJ was left dangling, writhing in agony as the tribesmen waited patiently, eyes fixed on the two women approaching in their boat. But AJ wasn't finished yet. Summoning every ounce of strength, he swung his body like a pendulum, snagging a knife lodged in a nearby tree. With a burst of determination, he dropped down and slashed at the tribesmen. Even as both plunged into the water, they continued their violent struggle, striking and dodging with raw, desperate energy. Jasmine and Mia, alarmed, kept their distance, watching the brutal fight unfold. The tribesman, however, was relentless, attacking AJ again and again, his strength almost inhuman. He tried to drag AJ under the water, aiming to drown him. Fortune finally favored AJ. In a split second, his hands grabbed the tribesman's weapon. Without hesitation, AJ turned it against his attacker, driving it home and killing him instantly. For the first time, the immediate danger seemed to subside, giving them a slim chance to escape. Reaching the riverbank, AJ realized that they were still surrounded by several tribesmen. Mia and Jasmine, still in the boat, called out to him frantically. But AJ's mind drifted to Richie, remembering how he had abandoned him in the forest, leaving him to die. Guilt washed over him, heavy and suffocating. Determined to make amends, or perhaps driven by vengeance, AJ made a bold, reckless decision. He grabbed a weapon and charged toward the remaining tribesmen, ignoring Jasmine and Mia's screams. He fought with fury, but the sheer number of attackers overwhelmed him. Multiple blows struck him down, leaving his fate grim and inevitable. Meanwhile, Jasmine and Mia were carried downstream by the river's current, far from the chaos. Eventually, they climbed a nearby hill and were rescued by local villagers, who safely drove them away from the restricted, deadly territory. And so, the story reached its tragic, heart-stopping conclusion. That's how our story ends here.